What's up, YouTube? We are going to be live in about 60 seconds. We're just going to let our little notifications go out, get a few people on the live. This is a big show today. Get set, buckle yourself up, strap yourself in. Whatever you need to do, we'll be on in just a sec. So you want to set some cracking goals for 2020. Well, in this show, we are wrapping up the psychology component of our 2020 goal setting series. We're going to go deep in emotions and emotional management today. This is a very, very awesome topic, something that I'm super passionate about because what we're going to talk about today, was a revolution that changed my life. We're also going to answer some awesome questions that have come through over the weekend. All that and more coming up right after this. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image. Welcome, Tribe. And if we haven't met, just in case it's your first time rolling with us, my name is Yanni Bormeister, along with Richard behind the camera and my brother Rad. We founded Unity Gym and the UMS system. And hey, if you're ever interested in how we get such incredible results with our tribe in the UMS program, you can download our flexibility, strength, or nutrition blueprints. You can go to our website, unitygym.com, and they're available there. Or in the link provided in this description, you can get the flexibility blueprint super easy. With me today, as always, I guess I could say now, because he's a regular on the show now, which is I'm thrilled about, is none other than Dr. Phil, or Phil, our resident physiotherapist. How are you today?
Yeah, going well.
Feeling
Keen
good?
to keep this topic rolling. I think there's really a lot of good stuff and some really nice comments about people challenging themselves and giving it a go. So I think it's going to be good for you guys. It's also good for me to just go through this process as well, learning from you.
I'll be honest, I'm very, very excited that this topic has been so popular among our inner circle, and because I've wanted to do a masterclass on productivity hacking and motivation hacking for a long time, and I was always a little bit restricted because I didn't feel like Rad was too interested in it, because he felt like we were sort of pushing into something that's not really in our lane.
I'm your enabler.
That's right.
I'm the yes man.
Phil's our enabler. And hey, Rad's been on on calls with me going, I can't believe how popular this is. You're going to have to do that motivation masterclass now, and put it all together. So it's very exciting for me. On another note, I'm feeling really good today because I did my first workout since being back at Unity Gym. I flew back from Europe 2 weeks ago and then got really sick and have held off on training. And I just said this week I'm going to do our program, what we teach our tribe. We teach our tribe in the classes here just an hour of workout, and us trainers do usually around 2.5 to 3 hours. And I just thought, I can't do 3 hours of exercise. I just don't have it in me right now because I'm still a little bit sick. You may hear that nasally sort of sound going on. I'm not faking that. But how energized does our program make you feel?
Surprise.
I haven't done the workout that our tribe do for so long, and you feel really good. I always feel knackered after our 2.5 hour workouts, and it takes me a while to be able to work after that. But I've come out of that workout and I just am pumped. I'm so charged. It's like I was saying to Phil before, it is the perfect dose of exercise. Not too much, not too little. It's just right.
It's almost like it's a really well thought out program or something. Who knew?
That's right. Can't believe it. These people are coming to us for a reason. I'm like, it's what we do is amazing. Anyway, back to goal setting 2020. So, if you found last week's Thursday or Friday's shows a little bit challenging to your ego, Friday we covered ego, and Thursday just before that we covered sort of where your emotions come from and the concept of you having a story and your brain sort of working very similar to a computer where it's programmed and it needs upgrades. Today if you found those two challenging, today is going to kick your ass mentally, because this is the part that most people, I think, have the most trouble with. And funnily enough, it is also the part that gives people the biggest breakthroughs. Because if you are someone who has an emotionally turbulent personality, then there is a very high probability that you are a slave to your emotions. And emotions I break into 3 sort of different categories: feelings, sensations, and urges. And you think about how often you don't do what you intend to do because of a feeling, sensation, or urge, and I mean, the most obvious...
All the time in all aspects of life.
Exactly, yeah. And seriously, it is so full on. And for me, I have a really, I'm very, very close to this topic, because this, as I said at the very beginning, was without doubt what created the biggest breakthrough for me in my life personally, because growing up, I battled depression quite severely and anxiety, and I had extreme highs and extreme lows, and then I used to be quite dysfunctional socially. And so my answer to that, my social dysfunction, was to just drink a lot of alcohol or take a lot of drugs, and I'm talking recreational drugs, and also painkillers, because I had quite severe pain from a spinal injury that I had when I was younger. And that used to just exaggerate my emotional swings from high to low, you know. And it wasn't until my late 20s, about 30, that I really realised that there is a way that you can learn to overcome that turbulence. And in fact, you can approach emotions from a completely different light to the way you sort of are taught to suppress emotions and consider them really bad and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, a subconscious teaching there. It's not like anyone tells you to do that, but just definitely the way that the societal pressures work. You know,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I feel like is, you know, slowly changing now maybe, but...
Yeah, absolutely. Look, there's a lot that's changing around this, but you still grow up sort of feeling like it's not cool to wear your emotions on your sleeve, and as a result, we tend to suppress emotions or we run from them. We try to avoid them. And
especially in men, I'd say, like.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I've come to learn over the years, which is a very big part of this strategy, is that is completely the wrong way to go about it if you are an emotionally turbulent person. And there are going to be those of you who listen to today's episode who don't experience severe emotional swings, and there are
me.
Like Phil, and there are going to be those of you who do and find this really quite confronting to talk about, you know. So hopefully you can bear with us and get through this episode, because man, there are a few little things in here, and we're not going to go deep into the actual strategies yet of emotional management. We're going to do that next week as part of the execution series. But what we want to talk about today is the concept of emotional, they call it cognitive fusion and cognitive diffusion, where we're disassociating from those feelings, sensations and urges. Because here's the reality. You are not your emotions. But the problem is that if you are feeling a little bit like a slave to your emotions, and anyone who makes a decision based on how they're feeling, not based on the intended outcome, then you are to some degree a slave to your emotions.
Yeah, and I think just a bit of background on why I say like not me, because I definitely had a different experience with growing up where I didn't have such big kind of highs and lows, but I definitely think whenever I came up with like, and I think I almost like get frustrated with myself that I'm almost like one step removed from that, and sometimes I find situations where I'm totally overthinking about how I should react, and it's not coming from an emotional place, which I often think is kind of, you know, like almost disingenuous to my actual interaction. So it's a kind of interesting like, and I'd say with like when I am reacting emotionally to things, or if I have like a big emotional feeling around getting something done or what I need to do, I'd probably try and distance myself from that emotion rather than getting swept up in it. And so I think that's what I mean when I'm not saying like I'm a robot who can act sort of, you know, that I'm not affected by this stuff, but I think it's just really interesting to sort of see how, you know, different we've, you know.
Absolutely. And it's a great point to bring up, because there are pros and cons to both, you know. Like I often have deep conversations with my partner Kalisha, who is very much like me. She has a tendency to swing from pole to pole. It's either extreme high or extreme low, and it's hard for her to center herself. And I say, look, there are benefits to it. You know, it is shit because you do often feel really down and really depressed at times, but you also, in the same token of feeling those deep depressive moments, you also have a tendency to feel extreme highs and extreme joy. And, you know, yes, I would probably prefer to be a neutral person more so, because you tend to not get as much interference from your emotions. Like you tend to be able to work in flow a little bit better and things like that. And if you arguably get more done. But, you know, some people say that you're not as visionary when you're as centered all the time. You know, you may not think as audaciously about your what you want to achieve and things like that, you know. And so, I think there are pros and cons to both.
Definitely, as a pretty level-headed person, I often see people who are having just like a really wild time with no concept of how that could impact things around them, and I think, oh damn, that looks kind of nice.
Like, it's kind of fun, you know.
But, but like,
I think
it's just harder to let myself go to that sort of level, because I do have this sort of generally more sort of even keeled, which,
Well,
is good in some ways, but
from a scientific standpoint, I don't want to kill you guys with the science, but from a scientific standpoint, what Phil's talking about there is actually what he has is he's got a regulator in his brain that regulates the hormones and the chemicals that produce these feelings much better than I do. So, and this is the difference between someone who suffers depression or anxiety or things like that. What tends to happen is that you're not regulating the chemicals properly, and so when you feel really good, your body just keeps producing that chemical to the point where it's depleted. And then as a result of depletion, you feel really shit afterwards. The difference between someone like Phil and someone like me is he's got a really good mechanism or system in his brain to regulate those feelings so that his brain can tell, okay, if I keep going down that path, come tomorrow, I'm going to feel like crap, so I'm going to cut it here and not go any further. And this is something that I've gone really deep into studying because I wanted to know why I suffered depression, what the actual mechanism was, and things like that. And I can share some amazing books from really amazing psychologists on this topic if you guys want to go really deep. I won't do it here because I don't want to bore you with the science. But that, in a nutshell, that's what's going on in our brains, So there is a chemical reason, and this is something that I want to, this is a great way to start this conversation about emotions. The very first thing about emotions and emotional management is to acknowledge that emotions are very real. They're not something that we concoct up as a fantasy or, something that shouldn't be taken seriously, because they're actually a chemical reaction occurring in your body, and you can look at them from a biological standpoint and go, okay, well, this is what's happening. This is why I'm feeling that way. That's why I've got that sensation or urge going on in my body. That's why I feel that tension in my chest. That's why I might cry or become really emotional. It is a chemical reaction in your body that's occurring. So don't ever think that even though we're talking about learning to disassociate from that emotion, it's not real, because they're fucking real. Pardon my language. And that is the first step to learning how to manage them better, is understanding the processes that are occurring in your body. And your body's producing these chemicals, and these chemicals are, there's these peptides that are neural peptides that are released that are reacting with molecules in your body that are making you feel this way. So that's the first step. And the second step, which goes in line with that, is to understand that those chemicals inside your body are not your body. They're not you. And therefore, you don't actually have to fuse to them. You don't have to think that they are what make up your character, because they come and go. And you can release them and get them out of your system just as quickly as they come. And that's probably what we're going to talk about more, because, let's talk about, before we go real deep down the emotional rabbit hole, on a more superficial level, for someone like Phil, how might this be beneficial to him? Because he doesn't go as deep and end up feeling depressed and suffering chronic anxiety where he's unable to leave his house, but he will have times where he makes a choice. He makes a plan or a goal, like, okay, I'm going to get this done as part of my fitness program or as part of my business tasks and goals. And then when the time comes to do that, he experiences a sensation or an urge or an impulse that takes him away from doing that.
I mentioned last week, I guess when we were talking about ego and some of that, the ways in which your brain will react to, when with my financial stuff for the business, I find that quite a challenging thing, where I feel quite capable in all the other aspects of the business stuff I'm doing and what I've studied and learned in terms of physiotherapy and exercise science. But when it comes to finances, and I'm just, I get that sort of, it's like a visceral feeling, it's a tightening in my chest and just a bit of a panic, because I'm, it's something where I feel, challenged and not very comfortable, and it kind of rocks my sense of identity, I guess, where I'm trying to be really, switched on and capable in all these other ways. But then when it comes to that, I feel like it's just, this intense sort of, physical feeling of, this is challenging. And that leads to me being I guess, looking for something that will change that sort of physical reaction I have. So going and doing something that, makes me feel you're kicking goals, you're doing, doing something else. And so you go and you search that sort of other physical and emotional feeling by, if I go and work on, I'm with the show, I'm looking to get the Unity YouTube show that we do every day, and I'm looking to turn that into a podcast that people can listen to. So, last week I was like, I should do my fantasy, and then I got distracted by this fun shiny thing, and it's like, that makes me feel a lot better and excited and energized. So that's just a practical example of
yeah. And I had the same thing around studying subjects that I disliked in high school and uni, and I could have done so much better, in those things. And I'm a big fan of doing, whatever you choose to do in life, do your best at it. Don't waste your time, and don't waste other people's time around you who are putting energy and effort into coaching or mentoring you. So, I look back at my high school years and I'm very disappointed that I really half-assed it. And even so, when I did engineering at uni, I feel like I could have done so much better, and it was exactly what Phil was saying there. When I used to sit down and do advanced physics, I used to get a visceral reaction. And then because I struggled with the concepts that could have easily been overcome with a bit of extra tutoring, I would just get worked up and then feel anxiety and all this, and then I'd just avoid it because I wanted to avoid, we want to avoid pain. Remember, we spoke about ego. Your ego wants to protect you from harm at all costs, and so it will come in and deflect, distract, distort, defend you. I don't need to do this. It's not important for me to focus on this right now. There are other things that I could be spending my time doing. Your ego is there to protect you from those uncomfortable feelings. But the reality is that life is going to present you with painful experiences. And 9 times out of 10, when you want to change something in your life or achieve something that you haven't achieved yet, it's going to be at the other side. Success will be at the other side of discomfort. You're going to have to endure some pain or discomfort to get to the moment where you actually feel like you've succeeded in that thing, especially changing something in your body composition, strength, something in your finances, for Phil to become a master at managing finances, which he's going to have to do as a small business owner at some stage. I ignored it for many, many years, and it catches up with you. Believe me so. The ATO doesn't like it when you don't pay enough tax and things like that, and so. Yeah, you have to understand that although life is going to deal painful cards from time to time, there are ways of approaching that pain, those emotions, that empower you to take an empowering stance.
And I'd say that often with this style of emotional pain, that visceral feeling that really rocks your kind of core identity, that pain is often so much worse than the actual physical discomfort of doing something like exercise.
Absolutely.
It's this real, you're trying to shield yourself from something, but you've done something so much more
absolutely
challenging and that causes long term.
And there are some key exercises that you can do when you're going through that feeling of emotional instability, where it might be just a thought. It might just be a sabotaging thought that your ego is trying to say you're never going to achieve this, so don't bother, or as simple as that. It might be as deep as a real feeling, a physical feeling, where you might start to hyperventilate and have shortness of breath. Phil spoke about the tightness in his chest that he got when he's trying to do his finances. And it might just be an urge. Like you're really trying hard. Right now I'm doing a year where I'm detoxing my family from processed and refined sugar and alcohol. And so my kids we're not allowed to have junk food in the house or junk food when we go out or anything like that. And because we had a pretty lousy year last year with that, and we sort of let the kids eat a bit of junk. And it's hard for me too, because I am a complete sugar junkie. I love chocolate and things like that, So from time to time, I am so crystal clear on what I want to achieve this year around my family goals and my personal goals, but I still get urges. You go to the supermarket, and especially if you haven't, you're not energized, and you go in a time when you're a little bit depleted, your energy's a bit depleted, you may not have eaten. I fast every day until lunchtime, and we go shopping in the morning. And I go and see the chocolate aisle, and I'm compelled. I get this urge to get some chocolate. The feeling is real, man. The emotion is real. There is what's going on there. But I have attuned myself, and I've honed my skills over the last decade in managing this stuff, that I am now 100% able to disassociate from this stuff. and completely just separate and see the feeling, sensation, urge in front of me and go, wow, this is very powerful. It's causing a lot to come up for me. And it can be anything from a chocolate urge to like stage 5 depression that would have floored me in the past, you know, and led me to have to go home or to lock myself up in my lounge room and just binge Netflix for a day and be completely unproductive for that day. Sometimes 2 or 3 days at a time. I can now completely disassociate from that, and you know, I might take a moment out, I might take an hour out, I might even take half a day where I just get on with something a little bit easier, like my physical training or something like that, or work on something a little bit easier to work through than something really deep and high end like a project that I'm trying to get done. But the liberation that's come from being able to do that, oh my God, it's so powerful. And I am such a firm believer now, because of the transformation I've had, that this is an absolute necessity for people, for everybody. If you want to achieve high levels of success in your life, in any area of your life, whether it be finances to fitness, you have to hone your skills in emotional management, and we call it cognitive diffusion, being able to disassociate from your emotions, feelings, sensations and urges, see them for what they are, acknowledge them for what they are, but not let them make decisions for you.
Is this how we talk about how to do it, or does that come with the next?
I don't want to go into the techniques on how to do it because they're a little bit airy-fairy, and I just want you guys to have some time to adjust to the concept that this is real and this is happening, and we're going to go there.
Yeah, well, Michael P's talked about how he's sort of managed his emotions. He said, find that meditating and being grateful for people and opportunities in life do help a lot with managing emotions, though it does take some work to make sure I do these things.
Absolutely. And Michael, here's the thing. Not like such a vast majority of the world's population can't even meditate because they can't get over this first step. And I thoroughly believe, and my belief is shared by many really, really great meditation gurus or experts, you would say, that consciousness and a lack of consciousness is the reason for all of the world's problems. Because if everybody shared a higher level of consciousness and we all understood that there is just different perspective in life, you know, two armies that go to war share completely different perspective. They don't share it. They have different perspectives on a situation. And if we could acknowledge that perspective and have a higher level of consciousness, we wouldn't bother going to war against each other. We'd just let people do what they do and not get upset about it, you know. But unfortunately, the world has a very low level of consciousness, emotional and psychological and spiritual consciousness. And most people can't even meditate as a result. You know, meditation is like key to my day. If I didn't spend 10 minutes as a minimum meditating every day, I'd be a bloody mess. And yeah, I just like you have to have experienced it because you do meditate a little bit, whether you're consistent or not. It's quite an amazing thing to do, you know. And I'm going to go through the 5 things that I do later on in the week as my daily rituals, you know. But it took me years to be able to meditate and a lot of help, you know. I've worked with a lot of guided meditation experts, and Sam Harris is my go-to meditation guru now. I've read a lot of his books and I do his Waking Up. I use his Waking Up app, and I just found that is just my way of hacking the system. My father meditates for 60 minutes every day, and I can't even fathom meditating for 60 minutes yet. I'm not at that level yet, but I just do 10 minutes a day, and that works for me, and that's my way of hacking the system. I'd love to know anyone else who's watching if they've ever tried meditating and what their experience has been, because God, the spectrum of people who try and people who just hate the concept, it's just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so challenging to be bored these days because it's so easy to distract yourself and so easy to just like fill your brain with something. And you know, that addiction to the, you know, notifications and everything, like that, the idea of just sitting there and meditating, like I've kind of dabbled, and it's something that I intend to, you know, after this series, I'm, you know, feeling all these things that I need to get going myself. And meditating is something I've definitely tried before and been a bit on and off, but I noticed that just like that being scared of being bored is like such a strange thing. And I really worry for kids growing up now with like just having like I just can't imagine when you go out for dinner and you see kids at their like iPad at dinner. I can totally understand from the parents' point of view why you'd want to calm down your crazy child. But like I just remember so many times as a kid just being like, how can adults possibly still be talking? Like what are they doing? You just sit there like, and I'm not sure if that doesn't necessarily safeguard us against the addictions of those little dopamine hits of notifications, but I just wonder what it's going to be like for kids who have just only ever known that. Like it's pretty crazy.
I think notifications are the worst thing in the world, and I don't have any. I have everything switched off, and I will talk about that later on in your.
And that's one thing I really love about ocean swimming, and why like I think I've found it kind of just such a huge thing for me in the last 3 years, and I don't meditate, but when I'm ocean swimming, it's like the one sport where it's like impossible to distract yourself with anything else. Like you can't listen to you can't put earphones in, you can't listen to a podcast. It's like, I do at Manly Beach in Sydney. It's beautiful. You have 750 meters each way, so it's a K and a half, maybe about half an hour of where you just like can't get that distraction that my brain is just like urged.
See, it's funny you say that, and I don't know anyone else that can relate. I can't, this is my ego talking right now, but I can't ocean swim very well. I used to do surf lifesaving, and we used to have to do like the gold medallion, and you had to swim 300 meters out and 300 meters back and all that sort of thing. But I'm scared. I'm petrified of ocean swimming because I'm petrified of getting bitten by a shark. And whenever I'm out and I can't see the bottom, I'm just like, my heart rate is like peaking, and I fatigue so quickly because I'm just like, I don't know what it is, and I'm probably just I'm probably so bad at this that I'm going to manifest getting bitten by a shark because
it's a clear example of how your emotions can really affect your physiology there. Like there's even though the risk is so low,
it scares the crap out of me.
Has a big
it's
physical
weird.
effect. Yeah.
I just have this thing, like you can't get angry if you get bit by a shark in the ocean because you're in their domain. And just like if a shark ever came into the gym, I'd probably bite it. So,
Well, yeah, think of me on Sunday, I'm swimming Palm Beach to Whale Beach. Palm Beach, where Home and Away was filmed, around the headland to Whale Beach, 3Ks of pretty deep ocean water swimming. So maybe see you next week.
There's so many sharks out there, There's so many sharks out there.
There'll be 1,500 of us doing it, so we'll gang up on them.
So as long as you're not the slowest swimmer, you're okay. That's what he's saying. Okay, so what we want to make sure today is that we just seed and plant this concept to you guys of cognitive fusion. That means that you are essentially fused to your emotions. When you feel a sensation, an urge, or a feeling, it dictates your decision-making process, and it's very hard for you to sort of, I guess, separate and not let your feeling, sensations, and urges contribute or dictate your actions and your and your results. And then there's cognitive diffusion, which is where you are able to see that it's just an emotion, it's just a feeling, sensation, and urge, and it doesn't. You have the ability and power to override it and not suppress it, because suppressing it's the worst thing you can do, because they tend to just build up in power and eventually come back tenfold. You acknowledge it, let it move on, and then you get on with what you had planned to do for the day.
Yeah, the way I kind of like that change of perspective, like you have a different view. I mean, if you've ever played like a first-person shooter game like GoldenEye back at, I don't know, any kind of game where you have either the view where like you're in the person and you can see like the gun in your hand or the whatever, and then you like press a button and then suddenly you like zoom out and you're looking at that person. I think you can kind of see how it's exactly the same thing is happening to, you're still controlling it in exactly the same way, but you have this different view on it, which kind of gives you a bit of a better idea around the surroundings and maybe the things influencing you. So just having that analogy of like how you can just look at your emotions, shift your perspective, and
that's exactly right. And we're going to go deeper in the week into some really cool little exercises that I've learned just straight out of some of the psychology books I've read on how to actually learn to disassociate from these things. And some of them are quite funny, some of them are quite fun, and some of them are quite real and serious, and it requires that sort of element of almost sort of meditation if you're one of those people that feel really, really quite strong emotions that can make you essentially paralyzed is the wrong word, but really stifle your ability to get through your day, really stifle your ability to think straight. And what I'm talking about, I guess, is feeling emotions physically, where you get a physical reaction to the stuff that you're experiencing. Because here's the thing, guys, life is not all peaches and cream. You know, from time to time you are going to, and it's only a matter of time before you have to deal with like severe loss, whether that's the loss of a job, the loss of a spouse, the loss of a family member, the loss of you know, your financial stability, and at that point in time you're going to experience severe emotional turbulence, you know, and it tends to either ruin or strengthen people. And you know, you always see these random motivational speakers. You know, there's a guy, I can't remember his name, but he does a tour. He tours around the world, motivational speaking, who was born with no arms and no legs. You know, and the guy's achieved more than the majority of people will ever achieve in their entire lifetime. And you know, you see some people who just overcome adversity, no matter what's thrown at them. They're just able to overcome it and come back stronger. And there is you know, there is no secret to this. The reality is that there are just ways that you can, skills that you can hone to get better at this stuff, and some people do and some people don't.
And I think the thing is that a lot of the time, like pretty much every example I can think of, I mean, obviously there's some horrible traumatic things that happen in people's lives, but often you know it's what the thing is that you want to be doing or could be doing that makes yourself better, and it's often just this emotional barrier that stops you from like pursuing, you know, your like getting fit or losing weight for your health, you know, dealing with your finances, like all of this stuff. We know that if we just did it, we'd feel a whole lot better, but there's just such big emotional barriers to actually getting it started. So yeah. I think it's just such a powerful thing if you can master this, and I hope that I can. I'm obviously still, you know, figuring it out and learning it myself. So yeah,
and just like anything, and I love what Phil just said there, because this goes so much deeper than managing depression. You know, I know that there'll be a lot of people, and probably the only people that are still watching right now are people that may suffer some form of depression or anxiety, and they're like, shit, maybe I need to listen to this. I wish that everyone else listened too, because for someone like Phil who doesn't suffer that emotional turbulence, this could just be something that he uses to dramatically improve his chances of success in everything that he does, you know. And I've never met someone who has achieved high levels of success in their life, or I've never read a biography. I'm like fascinated in reading biographies or autobiographies of really successful people, you know, mostly CEOs of companies, but also athletes really intrigue me. And I read a lot of books like that. They're probably the only other books I read other than self-help books or business books or finance books. And I've noticed a trend that every single one of these people at some point in their life masters this stuff. And it's no secret. They often talk about it. You know, Oprah's harping on about this shit all the time. People like that. Arnold Schwarzenegger is someone that I've followed a lot during my life, and I've read a lot about him. And he is huge on this stuff. You know, it's really, really big, and it's something that you have to practice. It's like exercise. You know, if you've never exercised before, and this is the same as meditation. If you've never meditated before, when you start, it feels really horrible. And it feels really horrible until you're good at it. Yeah. You know, you just feel uncomfortable. You feel like a fish out of water. You feel like you're doing everything wrong. You feel like you're not getting any result whatsoever from it. You know, it takes a long time to see a physical change in your body. And if you're someone who's really fueled by body composition goals, like you want to lose weight or you want to lean up and get more muscular, it often takes months and months and months and months and months before one day you look at yourself in the mirror and go, whoa, I look totally different than I did. And sometimes you even have to look at a picture of yourself a year ago next to a picture of yourself today, and before you notice that you've changed a lot, you know. I felt the same thing about meditation. I meditated for about a year, hated it, stopped doing it for about 3 or 4 years. Like, I went to a class, man. I had to go and have someone guide me through it, and I used to just fall asleep. And I'd come back going, why the hell am I paying all this money to go have a meditation coach talk to me whilst I'm asleep? It's the most stupid waste of my time. This is unproductive. So I quit, didn't think meditation was for me, created this story around meditation that only certain people can do it. My dad must just be a hippie, that's why he can do it. And then 3 or 4 years later, I was like suffering severe anxiety and depression again. And someone said, you've got to learn how to meditate. And I went and started reading books about it. Then I started using apps. Then I caught on to the fact that you don't have to do it for an hour. And then I started just persevering. And for another year.
Some people like marathons. Some people like high intensity training. You know,
that's exactly
some people like
right.
CrossFit. Some
you know,
people, yeah,
it's exactly right.
Different ways of doing it.
And I did it for about a year before it just clicked, and I went, whoa, this is freaking amazing. I just really worked hard to not swear then, because I wanted to emphasize how strongly I connected with the concept of consciousness and meditation. And since that point, man, it's been a revolution to me. But if I hadn't have persevered with those 3 years where I did it, hated it, stopped doing it, thought about doing it for a long time, then did it again, but only for like 10 minutes a day, and just persevered until I found a guided meditation app. I must have gone through 5 of them before I found one that suited me and that I could get into. And then I really dove deep and read 3 of Sam Harris's books, Waking Up. Oh God, he's written some really good books. And then I found, wow, this guy resonates with me. I can do this. He resonated with me because he is a scientist, and so he comes at it from a scientific standpoint. He's not an airy-fairy. I couldn't handle the hippie meditators who, are just about deep spirituality.
But some people might love that, and
but
if that works for
that
you,
that doesn't mean that that's wrong. Yeah, exactly. It's just a different perspective. We all have different perspectives on life, and I completely respect your perspective if that works for you. And so I found what worked for me, and now I couldn't go back. And if I miss my daily meditation, it affects me. It really affects me,
But more of this in the execution part of this series.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, key points to take home from today. No matter how strong you think you are going to come across and experience some adversity in your life, and that's going to cause pain, which is going to cause emotional turmoil. Now, you may or may not be really strong-willed, strong-minded, and well-centered. Someone like Phil, who doesn't swing to the extreme during that turbulent time, but you're still going to experience it. No matter what you try and do in your life, learning to manage the emotions, feelings, sensations, and urges is going to increase your chances of success exponentially. If you're an emotionally turbulent person, this is critical for you. You have no choice. You've got to get over your ego, whatever your ego is serving up right now, about how wildly airy-fairy and bullshit this might sound to you. This is real, and you need to strap yourself in and start honing your skills with this. If you're not one of those people and you just want to achieve a little bit more in life and you plan to set some big, hairy, audacious goals this year, my God, it's going to serve you well if you learn to master these skills. We're going to go through them a little bit later on in the week. Now, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of interaction. Michael P. saying, yes, Sam Harris is a beast. How can someone get so smart? Because he practices every day, man, and it's like anything, one, he's got a psychology background, and he understands the brain on that level, and then he's gone and found oh wow, the brain can be manipulated and it can be affected quite heavily by things like meditation, and
he cares deeply about it, and he follows his interests.
Exactly
and passions,
right.
So
yeah, exactly right. And
to
he's worked with some amazing coaches. He's traveled the world, meditating with some of the most, monks and all sorts of people all over the world. He's experienced everything, and as a result, he's put together his own formula that works really well for him and happens to work really well for me. Yeah.
And my 2 points before we wrap up, I was really happy that last time I mentioned that the fact that on pretty much every video we do, we get 1/10 of people liking it, and the last video where I mentioned that, a few of you were really nice and clicked like, so we got above that 10%. So if you could do the same for this one, that would be greatly
if you get any value out of it, guys, it does help us a lot to smash that like button, and it just also validates that we're on the right path and we're teaching you stuff that you guys really do appreciate learning. So,
and my other point, sorry, just to break in again, is that with that ocean swim that I'm doing on Sunday that I mentioned, it's actually a fundraising swim, and the money all goes towards early career cancer research that are often the researchers that don't get funded by the big sort of popular charities. So if you're interested, I might just put a little link to my fundraising page just to give you that option.
Hey Jared, thanks for letting us know, brother. We very much appreciate it, and we very much appreciate knowing that we're not talking to ourselves.
Yeah, and the fact that you're listening in the background there, again, I briefly mentioned before that I'm going to turn this into a podcast, going to rip the audio and put it out as a podcast, which I think, particularly for this style of show where, it's a lot of chat and we're not doing, stuff out in the gym floor, I think it's a really, I know I love consuming my information like this, where I don't have to be looking at the screen. I can just be listening to it while I do other things. So if you're keen on that, hit the like button and let us know in the comments.
Absolutely. Now, before we wrap up, I want to ask Phil, because this is quite new concepts to him, and I think that this will benefit everyone. I'd like to see whether you could share 3 things from this discussion that have given you some form of value.
Yeah, I think one of the most intense things is always kind of being like open and honest about the problems that you have. And I think the fact that, we've been talking about this and I've been thinking about where I feel, these emotional pulls that are influencing my behavior, and definitely talking about this financial stuff. And I think there's sort of nothing more valuable than like having a look in your own brain. And, I think that is, for me, a really powerful thing. And getting that sort of insight into, how that you can both identify these things and overcome them. I think that's pretty huge. So better do something about it, hey?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's really cool. I'm interested, because what he gets out of it is there's a high probability that you'll learn something from this as well.
Yeah.
Now, we have huge plans over the next year on this show. We want to really level up the production quality of the video. We spent a fair bit on audio production last year, and a bit better lighting, and part of that was creating a soundproof room. This stuff isn't cheap. The next phase is to level up the video production. We would like to do these in 4K, and we have to buy a really powerful computer for that. That's just going to be standalone, used for this show, and new really nice cameras with really nice lenses. And it's a lot of money. It's tens of thousands of dollars. But what it means is that my videographers are going to be able to rip video files and create shortened pieces, which we will call micro content, that'll be able to be distributed to YouTube, so that you don't have to sit through the entire show to catch a key point that you're looking for.
It's nice when you do, especially when you comment.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But these are the plans that we plan to do, that we plan to work on to really level up the production quality of this. So there's big plans coming. We got some cool guests coming on. We got Ben Pekulski coming back on the show in April, which I'm really looking forward to. I got a really good friend of mine coming on the show at the end of this week as our guest for this month, who is a motivational speaker and motivational coach, who's going to be sharing his execution guide to getting more done, and he's an absolute gun. He became extremely successful in sales, in corporate sales, and then he went and quit his corporate job, gave up like a $250,000 salary to start an e-commerce business, and then grew that business within 2 years to $1.5 million in revenue. Like, the guy is an absolute gun. Then he quit and sold that e-commerce business and started his own motivation coaching business. So I'm super excited to have him on the show on Friday. And he's just started his own YouTube channel, and he's really excited to come on and see how we do things, because YouTube is a really new thing for him. But he's just using it as an avenue to give, because he's been quite successful in his life, and he wants to give back to his community and that sort of thing, which is really cool. And then we got some big guests. We got Fitness FAQs, Daniel Vadnal and Cy Monster coming on the show in March. And if you guys have never seen these guys, look up Fitness FAQs on YouTube, look up Cy Monster on Instagram and YouTube. They're arguably some of the best calisthenics guys in the country, if not some of the best in the world. And they're coming and doing a show with us, and then on Friday, and then they're going to do a workshop over the weekend here at Unity. So we're super excited about that. And we're going to try and have a really cool guest once a month this year on the show. So lots planned. We better wrap it up. Richie's got to go teach a class, and we've got a lot to do. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to start cracking into the planning process. This is where I guess we're going to get in the car and we're going to start the sucker up. We're going to start the engine tomorrow, and then on Thursday, Friday, it's going to be rubber meets the road. So Tuesday, Wednesday this week is all about planning, reverse engineering your goals. This is where it starts to get fun. I'm so glad that you guys have sat through the psychology part of this, because if you've got issues with psychology, it doesn't matter how good your goals are, you're never going to achieve them. That's the reality. Anyway, till tomorrow. Thank you very much, Phil, for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Richard. And thank you guys. Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.